Good evening. I'm Erin Boucher, Chairperson of the Shrewsbury School Committee. Welcome to our meeting for Wednesday, February 25th. Tonight's meeting is being broadcast live on Cellco channels 29 and 329 and streamed live on Shrewsbury Media Connection's website. Thank you to Liz Poplowski and Shrewsbury Media Connection for their assistance with our broadcast this evening. Tonight's meeting will be rebroadcast on SMC's website and their YouTube channel between now and our next scheduled meeting. The first item on our agenda is public participation. Tonight, we have not received any requests to speak at public participation. Public participation is available to all residents who would like to address the committee regarding concerns of policy, budget, and the performance of the superintendent. In the future, if anyone should like to speak at public participation, you should contact the chair in advance of the next scheduled meeting. The next item on the agenda is chairperson and members' reports. Colleagues, anything to report this?
No. Not tonight.
And the next item on the agenda is superintendent's report. Dr. Sawyer?
Thank you, Ms. Boucher. First off, I want to again thank our Department of Public Works, our Highway Division, the Public Buildings Division, also many employees from the Water Division who helped out with various plowing and snow removal, our custodians at the schools. It's been a really challenging winter, and appreciate all the hours they've been putting in under difficult conditions and circumstances to be able to recover and reopen today after the blizzard of 26. There've been some questions about the end of the school year, and I did send out an update with the notification of tonight's meeting, or the reminder, just to remind people under Massachusetts state law, all public school districts have to be in session for 180 days. There has to be a minimum of 900 instructional hours for elementary schools and 990 instructional hours for middle schools and high schools. So over those 180 days, you have to have that many hours, depending on how many early release days you might have, the length of your school day, and so on and so forth. Those are local decisions that have to meet those benchmarks. In addition to that, there are regulations from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education that when you set your school calendar, you have to allow for at least 5 days before the end of June where you could have snow days, which results, I think, in some confusion because people think there's a maximum of 5 snow days, and that's not what the reality is. The regulations and the way that they implement them from the state level indicates that any days you lose for whatever reason, typically due to snow or weather, that happens up through March, you're expected to make up one way or another before June 30th or before the end of June. And if you don't have enough days at the end of June because of the way your schedule is set up, the state would expect you to utilize days on April vacation, for example, or those types of things. And we're not in that position, thankfully. But we do keep tacking days on to the end of June. I want to make sure I get the date right here in where we're at, but we have now had 6 snow days that we've had for this year, and that means the last day of school is now Tuesday, June 23rd. That will be a half day as typical for the last day of school. If we have more snow days between now and the end of March, which is quite possible, of course, we will tack on to those days. If for some reason we lost a day after March, there's been the occasional April snowstorm that we hopefully don't get, or we had an issue at one of our schools a couple of years ago where we lost power for a day and couldn't hold school. If something were to happen after that, we could apply to the state for a waiver of the 180 days. There's no guarantee we'd get it. I think the first question they're going to ask is, do you have more days in June? So we'll see what would happen if we get to there. Hopefully that's not a question we need to ask. And hopefully if we get more snow, it happens on the weekends. But we'll obviously need to adjust depending on what the rest of the winter brings. So again, right now the last day of school is Tuesday, June 23rd. If we have more days, we'll be moving out from there. For people watching and planning, that Friday, June 19th is a state holiday, so the school will not be in session on June 19th because of Juneteenth Independence Day. And again, the last day, half day, would be June 23rd, as we stand right now. So I wanted to update the community on that. The other piece I just want to mention is that I had the opportunity this morning to attend a meeting of the Worcester County Superintendent's Association at the College of the Holy Cross. It was our annual legislative breakfast. I want to thank Representative Hannah Kane, who is a terrific supporter of public education and of Shrewsbury Public Schools in particular. There was a presentation made by the Superintendent's Association around legislative priorities that we have and that our state association has. And then we had the opportunity, and Allison Borchers, who's my counterpart in Westboro Public Schools, and Representative Kane represents part of Westboro as well, and I and Representative Kane were able to have a very good conversation about some of the challenges we face fiscally, regulatory, and again, really appreciate Representative Kane listening, and we know that she'll do her best to support funding of local public education here over the course of the rest of the legislative session. So wanted to mention that, and again, thank Representative Kane for her ongoing support of our schools. And that is Superintendent's report this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Sawyer. The next time-scheduled appointment on our agenda this evening is an update on the superintendent search. On behalf of the school committee, I'm pleased to share that we're entering the final stage of our search for the next superintendent of schools. After a comprehensive screening process, we'll be welcoming the finalist candidates to the district starting tomorrow. As part of this process, we invite all community members to attend meet and greet sessions with the candidates. These sessions will provide an opportunity to hear directly from each candidate, learn about their leadership experience and their vision for our schools, and share your perspectives. The meet and greet sessions will be held at the Major Howard W. Beale Elementary School in the Media Center on the following days and times. Tomorrow, from 5 to 6, Reuben Duncan will be joining us. He's the current superintendent of SAU 47, Jaffrey and Ringe, New Hampshire. Friday, February 27th, Tiffany Ostrander, the current principal of Calvin Coolidge Elementary School, will be with us. Monday, March 2nd, from 5 to 6, Dr. David Thompson, the current interim superintendent of Wilmington Public Schools, will be with us. And Wednesday, March 4th, this has been rescheduled. It was supposed to be held yesterday, but because of the snow day, we will be having Todd Bidzidlo, the current principal of Shrewsbury High School, with us on next Wednesday, March 4th. The finalist resumes are available on the district's website for anyone that would like to take a look at them prior to these meet and greet sessions. During each of these days, the candidates will be visiting various schools and interacting with staff and students throughout the day. The school committee interviews of the candidates will be happening at 7 p.m. on each of those evenings. Those interviews will be recorded by SMC and available on SMC's website after March 4th. So if people would like to view those at home, please do so, and you can still submit feedback to us based on your viewing of the interviews. We encourage community members to attend these meet and greet sessions, and your feedback is a vital part of this process. Following each session, attendees will have the opportunity to submit comments to the school committee to help inform our final decision. We thank you in advance for taking time to engage in this important process. Ms. Fritz, do you have anything you'd like?
I think, the important part is that between the 4th, March 4th, and our plan is to deliberate and choose a candidate on the 18th. There's plenty of time for anybody who wants to watch the interviews after the fact and still send feedback. So we've got meet and greets. If somebody can't attend, at least they're able to watch those interviews and then still have plenty of time to give us feedback.
Great. Thank you. The next item on our agenda is the acceptance of a gift and a vote. Per school committee policy 911, gifts of $5,000 or more must be formally accepted by the school committee. For its 30th anniversary, the Massachusetts Beijing Chinese Language School would like to make a $5,000 donation to Shrewsbury Public Schools to support continuation of a scholarship for graduating seniors at Shrewsbury High School. This follows a gift of the same amount given a decade ago on the occasion of their 20th anniversary. Massachusetts Beijing Chinese Language School, founded in 1995, provides instruction in Chinese languages, math, and the arts. Additionally, they have added value to the larger community by conducting cultural events in Shrewsbury and the Worcester area, including at Oak Middle School and Shrewsbury High School. There's Mandarin classes and events and such as the annual Lunar New Year celebration. This year's edition was held this past Sunday at the Oak Middle School. So it's,
I can speak to this,
John,
Ms. Boucher, thank you. We really appreciate the ongoing support of the Mass Beijing Chinese Language School. It's been a longstanding partnership with the district. I had the good fortune to be able to attend the event on Sunday. I was able to see several of our high school and middle school classes perform as part of the festivities, as well as the Mandarin classes those are our Mandarin classes at both Oak and the high school. Mandarin classes from St. John's High School also performed as they traditionally do, as well as different classes from the Chinese language school itself. Mr. Brian Chu has been an excellent and wonderful supporter of our school district over a long period of time. We have another connection. His wife, Ms. April Yu, works for us as our Assistant Director of Finance and Operations for our school district. And we're really pleased that they are offering this generous gift of $5,000 to continue a scholarship program for students who wish to study Mandarin in college. So I certainly thank them and recommend that the school committee vote to accept this gift.
any questions or comments before we take a vote? I'd just like to thank the Massachusetts Beijing Chinese Language School for their generous donation on behalf of the school committee. Can I have a motion that the committee vote to accept a donation of $5,000 from the Massachusetts Beijing Chinese Language School to support a scholarship for graduating seniors at Shrewsbury High School?
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor shall signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And the motion carries. The next item on our agenda is the fiscal year 27 special education budget report. Annually, the leadership of the Student Services Department provides information regarding programming for students who are eligible for special education and other student services, and reviews key budget information projected for the following fiscal year. Ms. Belcito and Ms. Waterhouse will provide a summary of the report that we've been forwarded and answer any questions the committee may have. So good evening. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having us tonight. First, I would like to introduce you to Patty Waterhouse and thank her for being here with me. Patty is the Interim Assistant Director for Student Services. She stepped into the role earlier this year. Previously, she was the Director of the Middle School Special Education Programs at Sherwood and Oak. Prior to that, Patty has a long history and experience leading a special education school in the city of Worcester, formerly the Mercy Center. So just wanted to thank Patty for joining us, and you'll hear her throughout the presentation as well.
Thank you.
I'll put this here, so the two of us. So on the very first day of school, we talked about the navigation of many things in education and how we need to be anchored in our beliefs. And over the past few years, we have tried to have a theme that brings us throughout the year. And this year's theme, we are sharing our successes, and it's called Anchors Away. To date, we have had over 100 staff members nominate by their colleagues and for the work they do each day in our schools. By showing stability and change, resilience and strength, commitment to each other, or launching new journeys with students. We're grateful for all that they do in our schools each day. And this is just something I wanted to start with tonight, along with a couple other positive things over the next couple slides. So, this year, this past November 29th, we celebrated the huge occasion of the 50th anniversary of the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, or IDEA. This landmark legislation, which began with President Gerald Ford signing the Education for All Handicapped Children Act in 1975, has transformed lives. Today, thanks to IDEA, more than 8 million infants, toddlers, children, and youth with disabilities are guaranteed a free and public, appropriate education that they deserve. Here are a couple examples of how that's lived out in Shrewsbury. As you know, we're a unified champion school district. On the right, you see Andrew Ali, Suhaib Adam, George Combs, and Tim Barner represented Shrewsbury High School at the Youth Leadership Conference hosted by Special Olympics Youth Activation Council. The students participated in breakout groups led by other student leaders about inclusive sports, whole school engagement, and youth leadership. In the center, you see a picture of the Patton Unified newsletter. Each month, the Patton Unified Club sends out a monthly newsletter sharing how At their level, at the elementary level, they have youth leadership, whole school engagement, and unified activities completed. An enormous thank you needs to go out to a number of people, but especially to the Love family, who has recently donated $5,000 to the RISE program and $2,500 to Parker Road Preschool. As many of you know, Ryan Love was a student in the Shrewsbury Public Schools for many, many years and recently graduated from the program. Also to the Shrewsbury Federal Credit Union for $100,000 that went to the van that you now see up at Maple and Main and Rise, and also the ice cream truck, ice cream cart, not truck. But the cart actually is just going through the final stages of the licensure that's needed with the town, which is called like a peddler's license, all the things we learn, an inspection by the Department of Public Health, which was great. The new representative from the Department of Public Health came and talked to the kids about what it's like to have an inspection, what they needed to go through for the process of selling ice cream. So that's been great, and we should be up and running soon. And last but certainly not least, Emily Anderson is running the Boston Marathon on behalf of RISE, and to date she has raised over $20,000. So she still has a little time left, which is just amazing. So tonight we are presenting the fiscal year 2027 Special Education and Student Services budget. We'll highlight enrollment trends, mandated services, fiscal responsibilities, some efficiencies, and our recommendation moving forward. Always grounded in our mission and our commitment. Our work is rooted in IDEA, as you know, and Section 504 compliance, but our mission extends beyond mandates. We focus on independence, collaboration, ensuring our students thrive academically, socially, and emotionally. This Special Education and Student Services Department is dedicated to empowering our students, whether it's through an IEP or a 504 accommodation plan. We have innovative programs like co-teaching, our Educational Learning Center, our Therapeutic Learning Center, our RISE program in Maple and Maine, and I can't help but say how our staff constantly remains steadfast in enhancing the academic and social emotional outcomes for all of the students in Shrewsbury. So during this entire school year, many of you know that this Shrewsbury Public Schools is partnering with District Management Group to conduct a comprehensive student services opportunity review. Running from the winter to the spring, the review uses data analysis, stakeholder feedback, and anonymous schedule sharing to evaluate district systems rather than individuals. The goal is to identify strengths and efficiencies that will improve service delivery, optimize resources, and provide actionable recommendations for enhancing student outcomes.
So the DMG group is working on a process that has phases. This opportunity review began, and we're wrapping up phase 1, which is where we submitted lots of data for them to analyze, both qualitative and quantitative. They have conducted one-to-one interviews with leadership across the district, and they're starting to share some preliminary takeaways. We are moving now into phase 2, where we have convened a guiding coalition who will lead the work moving forward. And we are also beginning with some focus groups across stakeholders in the district. Then we will move into phase 3, which is starting soon, which is called schedule sharing. They have a quite sophisticated process by which staff across the district will submit sort of a snapshot, a week in the life, so to speak, of things that are happening in each one of our areas of focus. And the DMG will conduct an analysis and do some benchmarking across many factors that they're looking at with the schedule sharing. And then finally moving into phase 4, where the DMG will present their full findings to the district leadership. This timeline says May to June, but we did speak with them about potentially moving some of their recommendations up earlier so that that could occur before the end of the budget cycle in case there are budget additions or cost savings that might come as a result. Their hope is to have a small number, potentially 3 to 5 recommendations that can be manageable and sustainable in the district moving forward, rather than pages and pages and pages of recommendations. They really try to keep that focus pretty narrow.
So our dedicated staff have many areas of expertise and provide a multidisciplinary web of support integrating experience in academics, nursing, mental health, and specialized therapies to serve the whole child. As you can see, we have over 70 teachers, moderate, intensive, and ELC coordinators. We have over 20 therapists for occupational therapy, speech and language, and physical therapists. We have over 120 ABA technicians. We have over 40 child-specific and therapeutic support paraeducators. We have 13.6 nurses, 7.5 team chairs, and 33 clinicians. That includes psychologists, adjustment counselors, clinical coordinators, and our district social worker. The range of intervention and support is from full inclusion to partial inclusion, substantially separate self-contained classrooms, in-district programs, and out-of-district placements. So we go from our least restrictive to our most restrictive.
This is a snapshot of our IEP enrollment. We have 962 students across the district at this time who are provided with IEP services. That's approximately 16% of our student population in the district, with our largest categories, our disability categories of autism, followed by specific learning disabilities, health disabilities, and developmental disabilities.
Along the lines with our 504 accommodation plan trends, we have 471 students on 504 plans. That's up from 446 last year. 7.8% of our district enrollment has a 504 accommodation plan. 63% have a HELP or ADHD as the reason for their plan. We do have a significant amount of students with emotional and mental health needs or accommodations in our schools. Unlike IEPs, 504 plans continue to rise steadily. We have seen an increase in referrals, mental health impacts, and move-ins as contributing factors. Relatively, over the past few years, we've seen that our IEP numbers or percentages stays around 16 to 17%, where 504s have increased from 3% to 7%. Also, as you know, we have our extended school year programming that happens each summer. Last summer, we had 262 students served. We had programming for our educational learning centers. We had academic classrooms, our intensive students. We also had our RISE program running. Multiple related services happened on a weekly basis. We had a combination of teachers, therapists, and coordinators throughout the summer. This year, we are currently looking at the dates of the programming due to the snow days. And we are looking to have the same as last year, where we'll have 5 or 6 week programming, pre-K through RISE.
Here's a snapshot of our out-of-district students. We currently have 51 students in out-of-district placements. We are projecting at this time that we'll have 50 out-of-district students for fiscal year 27. That number is dynamic, and so it can shift and change. Move-ins, move-outs, and a variety of other factors do impact that number. It's important to note we have 3 students in the district for whom the Operational Services Division have assigned a cost share, which means a student might have 2 parents who live in 2 different districts in which the 2 districts would share the cost of tuition evenly. Of our current students that are placed out of district, you can see roughly half are in private day placements. The next biggest category would be students that are placed in collaborative programs. Collaboratives have a board of directors that's made up of representatives of the member districts. We do have just under 13% of our students in residential placements, and we have a small number of students who either are residing at a hospital placement or receive home-based services because of the nature of their disabilities.
And we had to put this picture on this slide. This is Dr. Sawyer with one of our all-time favorite students who's currently at Assabet Valley Collaborative in the Evolution program. So Jasmine Castro is an enormous fan of Dr. Sawyer and has been for years. Surprised if he didn't, he didn't share, but he usually gets emails regarding snow days and her opinion of what should be happening. So we had to, as one of our final budget reports with Dr. Sawyer, to have this picture of him with Jasmine, as she would want.
This picture is also hanging in my office, and they're two of my favorite people. You will see over time we have a positive trend in the number of students that are placed out of district. In the school year 22-23, where the lines, the blue and the red lines, break off, you can see that with the implementation of our RISE program for our post-secondary 18 to 22-year-olds, and then several years following that, with the implementation of our therapeutic learning classroom at the elementary level, we have been able to enhance our in-district supports and keep students within their community and keep them in district rather than having to fund out-of-district placements. As a result, the last fiscal year, we did realize a savings of $288,000 for students in our RISE program who would have otherwise been placed out of district, and we realized a savings of $185,000 for students in our TLC program. We've been able to utilize a lot or implement a lot of professional development for our staff so that they can specialize these programs to meet the needs of those students and do training in positive behavior interventions and supports, collaborative problem solving, and other areas.
And
Sorry,
also,
you were gonna say something.
I was just going to thank Chris Girardi and Dr. Sawyer and Chris with all his financial work in supporting this report and this particular, some of the slides I'm sure you recognize from the budget books from past presentations.
In terms of our numbers for our out-of-district tuitions, we currently in fiscal year 26 have a total budget of $7.55 million for students who are placed out of district. And though we are projecting that we'll have one fewer student next year in out-of-district placements, we are expecting an increase of $240,000 in the budget for a total of $7.79 million. There are several factors for that. One is the Massachusetts Operational Services Division approval of an inflationary increase of 3.04% for next year. And we have two of our placements where we have students attending school who have applied for reconstruction, which is a process by which they can apply to Operational Services Division for an increase in tuition over and above the inflationary increase. If those are approved, we would be looking at $50,000 or more per student who attend those schools as a result of reconstruction.
And this chart is a breakdown of the tuitions in the different categories of amounts.
Yeah, you can see the majority of our students are in placements that are between 50 and 100,000, and then roughly the same amount that are in placements that are $100,000 to $200,000. That does not include additional costs like the cost of a one-to-one aid or some of our programs which are not year-round might charge extra for extended school year services.
The next slide is about circuit breaker, and certainly I know you all know about circuit breaker very well. Those people that aren't as familiar with it, circuit breaker is essential to maintaining the financial stability in special education budgeting. As you can see here, that very form that's on the slide is the very detail that the administrative assistants in our office go through to submit for every single student to see who would actually make the threshold for circuit breaker. And so the program serves as a critical state-funded safety net, reimbursing districts for high-cost special education services that exceed 4 times the state's average per pupil foundation budget. Through semi-annual reporting, so right now in our office, the administrative assistants Anne-Marie Tyler and Denise Barros are actually going through to go through the process of what's called extraordinary relief to see if we qualify. But what it allows us to do is actually estimate what the reimbursement to the district might be at the end of the year. But we don't anticipate receiving extraordinary relief, but what it allows for is for us to go through the process to give a good estimate to all of you and the district and town as to where we are at this point in time. We document these qualifying expenses to recoup typically up to 75% of the costs above the threshold. While these funds are essential to offsetting intensive tuition and specialized placements, actual returns remain subject to the annual legislative appropriations. This program does allow the district to maintain our high-quality services while protecting the broader town-appropriated educational budget. So pretty detailed and complicated. Again, this slide I know you have seen, but certainly for us, we actually go through this often. On a weekly basis, Patty submits to Dr. Sawyer and Chris Girardi regarding how we are doing with tuitions, if there's any movement, whether we have students that are going out of district changing placements, if we have any move-ins, any number of things that can happen in this area, frankly on a daily basis, but on a weekly basis she does do an update. We have a projected total cost of $7.79 million for out-of-district tuition for FY27. To cover these costs, the budget utilizes a combination of 2 funding. We're going to do circuit breaker offset for $5.4 million and the town appropriated budget for the remaining $2.37 million. The chart also details the circuit breaker reserve, which is essential for managing the year-over-year fluctuations of the high-cost placements or other unanticipated costs. So for FY27, the district expects to have $7.59 million in total circuit breaker funds available. This includes the year-end reserve from FY26, just over $3 million, additional carry-forward budget variances of $238,000, and anticipated FY27 reimbursements of $4.3 million. The end-of-year projection, after applying the $5.4 million offset, the district estimates a remaining circuit breaker reserve balance of $2.368 million at the end of the following fiscal year. So as I mentioned before, the IDEA grant, this is our federal grant that we receive every single year. That's well over $1 million. The federal funds are strategically leveraged to maximize district efficiency. Our primarily funds RISE program, transportation, and proportionate share services. For FY26, the district allocated $80,227 to support eligible parentally placed private school students and homeschooled students within Shrewsbury. This funding facilitates meaningful consultation with our 6 local private institutions, such as St. John's and Alhambra Academy, to provide things like tutoring, social skills support, specialized curriculum materials for students with active IEPs. Under this regulation, we're also talking about disproportionality, which I'll have Patty talk about for a minute.
So the Department of Education does an analysis based on our reporting numbers every year, and we were notified that we have a disproportionate number of white students in Shrewsbury who are identified as students with health impairments and with emotional disabilities. There's a formula that the state uses to determine this disproportionality. Because we have been found to be significantly disproportionate, we have engaged in a process. We have a small committee, and we have been attending trainings and doing some self-analysis work of our systems and doing a root cause analysis to try and determine why we have more white students in these two disability categories than would be expected based on the number of, on the breakdown of our general student population. We need to submit an action plan to the Department of Education, which is going to be due in March. And then 15% of that 240 grant that Meg just talked about, which is roughly $250,000 a year for the next 2 years, we need to divert toward efforts at decreasing that disproportionality. In the past, when we have found ourselves in this position, we have used that funding to help support implementation of things like PBIS, positive behavior interventions and supports, as well as training for our IEP teams to make consistent decisions about eligibility across our district.
The other area that it supports is our Wayfinder software and curriculum that's used for social emotional learning is funded through this area of the 240 grant for all students. So we also collaborate with a number of contracted services. Primarily, this helps support students with low incidence disabilities within the district. These specialists offer expertise in various areas, including psychiatry, orientation and mobility, teacher of the visually impaired, teacher of the deaf, teacher of deaf-blind, audiological services, augmentative and alternative communication, and assistive technology. The other thing we wanted to mention tonight was Dr. Kim Kuziak. She's been our consulting psychiatrist. It's well over 10 years. She was here when I began in the district. She has supported what's called clinical rounds in the district, where if there's a challenging situation where a team would benefit from further consultation outside of the services that we provide, Dr. Kim Kuziak has been a wonderful support, offered a lot of professional development and advice to our students, our staff, and our families. And she has announced her retirement. So I wanted to mention all of that this evening. We're grateful for the partnership we've had with Dr. Kuziak over the years, and certainly wish her well in her next phase. And I'm certainly hoping she'll stay in touch with us. The other thing we wanted to talk about tonight is where the budget translates into direct student impact. All of this work and all of these different things we talk about, we can't help but want to thank our directors, Bridget Nichols at the preschool level, Jackie Marcello and Erin Kennedy at the elementary level, and Erin is also the part-time interim director at Sherwood Middle right now, Kristen Clifford at Oak Middle, Kristen Herrick for our specialized programs, Megan DeLeon at the high school, Jamie Millett for mental health and clinical counseling, and Kate Perry, our director of nursing. Certainly, when the budget translates into direct impact, we're really seeing a lot of different things that in our buildings we have been working on this year. Specifically at the preschool, we continue to work through early intervention supports and what MTSS looks like, the multi-tiered system of support for our youngest children entering the school system. Our elementary continues to work on developing intervention services that are very targeted around reading and math supports. Middle school, we've expanded our structured reading, and we want to make sure that by the time our students are reaching, especially the high school level, we're seeing the need for that level of reading support to not be as high as we've seen over the past few years. Our high school, as they work through the accreditation, talking about curriculum alignment, vocational expansion. Our intensive programs continue to look at how we allocate adult support, whether that's fading or adding support services for all of our students that are in our intensive programs. Our clinical teams continue to work on the universal mental health screening as one big example of what efforts were put in the district over the past few years to really see the strategic priorities come alive beyond just the budget through our students and the successes and the staff that have put it all into play. So, for recommendations and considerations, we really wanted to talk about a few things with you tonight. During the fiscal year 2026 and included in FY27, we added one school adjustment counselor at Sherwood. This position was absorbed within the allocated personnel budget at no additional cost. We also wanted to continue to talk about positions needed to meet increased student need. What we have seen is that we do have a couple complex medical students at Sherwood Middle School, along with the ongoing needs that we've seen capacity-wise for our nurses at Sherwood Middle over the past few years. We'd really like to see how 0.2 additional at Sherwood Middle School could really help support the students, the staff, and our families. Positions moving from grant funding to the school department budget are 1.0 therapeutic learning classroom teacher, our therapeutic learning classroom adjustment counselor. These two positions were added using the emergency homeless shelter grant funding to establish the program. As noted above, the therapeutic learning classroom is providing substantial cost savings compared to educating students in out-of-district placements while keeping students in their home community. We look forward to the DMG Group Services Opportunity Review Report and hope to have something interim before the end of the school year, or a final report, I should say. And lastly, our department will continue to look for potential efficiencies, and where warranted, to make shifts within existing programming and personnel assignments to address needs without adding any additional funding allocations. We certainly want to thank you for having us tonight, and I know there'll be plenty of time for us to say thank you, but we continue to talk about how there will be a major shift with Sandy retiring from the school committee and everything you've done over the years to support and advice, mentor, and advocate for our work. We can't thank you enough, and I know that we still have time to continue to thank you, but we couldn't help but say that, as well as Dr. Sawyer. We don't want to start to get upset, but we couldn't be here without you. So we appreciate and thank you for all your support, looking over, talking through, mentoring, the advocacy. It goes on and on. So this won't be the last time we talk about it, but we did want to say thank you, especially to the two of you tonight.
Anyone have any questions, comments?
First, I want to thank you both and all of the team that you work, because it's really complex and detailed work that's always constantly shifting and changing based on student needs. And it's not easy work, we know that. And I think our district does it extremely well. We also do it efficiently, and I think you have to be thanked for looking for areas of efficiency within a budget that is tight and has a lot of complex needs. And talking about RISE, the therapeutic learning classrooms, working with DMG, these are ways that our district is always looking to make sure we're doing the best that we can with the dollars that we have. But it's also, I believe, a little bit above and beyond of your roles to do that, because you're working for student services, but you're also continually helping to look for areas of efficiency to do things better. So thank you for that. one ask, Patty, you mentioned that their DMG is starting to give some preliminary information, and that's something we had talked about as we move into the budget. It would be great if we can see some of that or hear some of that, just as we go forward to see are there areas that actually need increase or decrease, just to look at that as we move forward into the budget. It would be really helpful.
When we met with them, we had a preliminary group leadership and special education meeting, and we did tell them that we were hopeful that we would have some of that information, or that they would have some of that information to share with you all in writing or by meeting with you. I'm not sure how that'll happen, but that's on their radar.
Great, thank you.
Yes.
One question I have around the reconstruction, and also to thank Dr. Sawyer as well, because I know he's advocating to make sure that there's a voice in these meetings, because there's a lot of, it's big increases with not a lot of input or understanding to the why it is needed. So I know Dr. Sawyer's really been helpful, and you as well. So when we're looking at the potential for up to 50,000 per student or more, is that information, are we considering that in our preliminary budget? So that's baked in already, that we could have this. Okay, just wanted to make sure that was in there.
Yeah, one positive part of the state regulations around that is that we have to be notified of what the highest level of increase could be by October 1st, prior to the next fiscal year.
Okay,
So those are the numbers we're using, and we're assuming. I actually had a conversation with someone at the department today about this issue, and there'll be ongoing conversations. It was a very productive conversation, I thought. I think there's some recognition that there can be some improvement in the process to provide more voice for districts and some transparency and to a process that is very complicated. And certainly, we know that there are private special education schools that exist to serve students that are local public school districts don't have the capacity to serve, and it's a really important function of our system overall. At the same time, we recognize that and there's been a lot in the news about this recently, including a report that just came out from the Inspector General's office yesterday around special education transportation, and
Yep.
I was able to skim through it, and one of the bottom line things, it's very complex. It's not, there's no easy system or systemic answer to say, here's how we can be as cost-effective as possible. So certainly, your comments, Ms. Fritz, about the work that our department's doing to be as cost-effective as possible. But there are realities to the increases that put pressure on the state budget around the circuit breaker reimbursement. They put pressure on local budgets. And there are things that we are required to provide for mandated services, and we manage them the best we can. But I think we're spending time and effort trying to make sure that we're finding the most cost-effective ways to serve our students well, and do that in a way that's fiscally responsible.
and just one question, last question around the significant disproportionality, if I'm saying it right. What's the timing of that? So, we are providing information to the state, and then they're deciding if there is an issue. Because is there, how long does it take to get the services to the students that are identified?
So we are notified in the fall. We had, and there was an early convening earlier in the fall to help the committee work through the process, truly understand the formula that they're using, and to do some self-analysis about getting at what the root causes are. We had another convening in January, and we had to submit our root causes, what we had determined to be the root causes. So we've submitted that already, and that has been approved. The submission for our action plan is March, and it was recently shifted a little bit later because of the number of snow days that have happened across the state. So that will be due in March, and then it's the allocation or the diverting of the 240 grant funds over the next 2 fiscal years. So we already know what the amount that we'll need to divert to that is, and what we're waiting on really is to submit that final action plan report and then have that be reviewed. Do you have any other details to add there?
No, that was perfect. I think the tricky part for us is that each year that they go through and see if you're, they basically tell you if you're at risk, if there is a finding, and then some years you might not meet that threshold of the formula. So we anticipate, based on what we see for the numbers now, that we'll continue to have these particular areas for 2 years.
Okay.
We are at risk in one more area, but it hasn't been found yet. So our hopes is that what we're putting in place will actually maybe divert the percentages. It's hard to tell at this point, but we've had this now for 4 years.
Okay. Right. Thank you.
It's at least 4 years.
It was prior to COVID the first time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's just trying to mitigate that as best as
Exactly.
we can. Opening
Yes.
those. Yeah.
Yes.
Right. Thank you.
Mr. Winsky?
Thank you for the report. It's always make it look so easy within the just the context of a presentation, but we know how complex this work is, and really appreciate all the work that you're doing and your team is doing to support our students. And there's a lot of great work, a lot of things to be proud of in the district around the Unified Champion District that we see every year, and then the RISE program really becoming the crown jewel of the town and the school district, right? It serves that dual purpose of, community space, but also a space for the critical learning that we need and the efficiencies that come with that. The $288,000 that we are saving as a district by having that valuable program here, and just outstanding. I love the addition of the ice cream cart and the learnings that you're pretty transparent about. I think we could maybe find a space for them at a school committee meeting so we can get more people here.
There you go. That's an idea.
I do appreciate Patty, you walking through that report and the phased approach that's happening around the DMG work. I know just having gone through it from a district perspective, it's very thorough, and I'm really excited to see what that turns up. And I mean, I think the district's always demonstrated looking for efficiencies across every department. I mean, we've seen it in the last 3 or 4 budget cycles where it's in your report in terms of that executive summary, as it is every other report that we have that would be presented to us in this budget cycle. But it comes from having to do it every year, even prior to the May 2021 override. We always had to find ways to do more with less, right? And now we've had a little bit more predictability over the last 5 or 6 budget cycles, which I think is good. And we've been nationally recognized for that efficiency and that return on investment. I think we're showing it, especially in here as well, for this plan. And I think it's important for the public to know too the volatility that happens in the special education space. It is, from my perspective, over the last 10 years, the most volatile space that we have. And you look at that out-of-district tuition data that you provided, anywhere from a range of $50,000 to $500,000, which kind of takes you back to the circuit breaker and why that's so critical as a safety net for the town, right? Because as you mentioned, Patty, the move-ins, the move-outs, the unpredictability, we don't really have a lot of control over that.
Right.
So I think it's important, and I remember being in many budget sessions with Chris talking about the popsicle headache that is circuit breaker, trying to understand that as a school committee. It's very hard, but it's a worthwhile exercise to learn why it's there, because I think sometimes it can be, misunderstood, right? So one question I did have after all that, around that increase, that steady rise in the 504 plans, does that growth require, it's going to require additional staffing, or how do you manage that?
So 504 accommodation plans are general education plans. So those are actually put in place by the teachers.
Right, okay.
What we're seeing are the administrators that are handling the 504 meetings. So that's certainly been an addition for the administrators that conduct the 504 meetings. So that's at the high school level. The assistant principals have seen an increase in the number of meetings.
Right.
Assistant principals at our middle school. At the elementary level, the bigger schools, the assistant principals support as well as the principals do it. And then the smaller schools, it's the principals and then our preschool director. So, that's actually what we're really looking at trying to find ways to maybe support the actual meetings.
Gotcha. Okay.
But the general education teachers complete the plans.
Okay. Great. Thank you very much.
Oh, you're
Appreciate
welcome.
it.
You have a very special area in our district, and it touches on so many things, and it impacts so many different people. And you both and your whole group have done a tremendous job enhancing the academics and the social emotional outcomes. I'm interested to see what the DMG report comes back with, and I appreciate your engagement with them. I feel like we had a good experience with them when we engaged with them, and they came back with some really good information for us. Again, I'm interested to see what they say, because I do think that you are pretty efficient already. So for them to come back with some recommendations, I'd like to see what that is and how we can incorporate that. I have a couple easier questions for you. The anchors of impact that you started off with, is that similar to the student services? Because I really enjoyed that last year with all the updates of all the staff that were really making an impact. So I didn't know if we had renamed it, but I like that. Couple questions. One, the out-of-district placements where a student may have a shared cost between districts because of parents living in different districts. If that student were to no longer need the out-of-district placement and was able to come back to our own district, at that point, is the cost solely on Shrewsbury? So there would not be a split between if a parent lived in Northborough and a parent lived in Shrewsbury. That wouldn't be the split anymore. It would come back onto Shrewsbury to pay
Yes, it
for.
would shift into
Correct.
a per pupil
Right.
cost, and it wouldn't be shared at that point.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. My other question is, and we may have talked about it at some point, but for the RISE program, such it is a special program, and we have something really good going, and not every district has a program like this. Have we thought about, at some point in the future, of having students from other districts being a part of the RISE program?
We have talked about that potential, and right now our numbers would probably not suggest that would be a good idea. Our numbers are still pretty high. Next year we're anticipating 19 students. I don't think we'd recommend tuitioning in from another district. We have had a number of districts inquire if they could tuition in to our program, but we don't feel like we have the capacity to support that just yet. In the future, if our numbers were lower just based on enrollment, we could definitely talk about something like that as an option. But based on our numbers, I would think that we wouldn't recommend it
Okay.
at this time.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
Nope, that's okay.
Mr. Villalobos?
Thank you very much for your time and the presentation. I think this is very helpful, and especially related to circuit breaker and all the transportation costs. As Dr. Sawyer mentioned, I'm also looking into the AGS report. Hopefully, there's some. It looks like we are one of the 6 states still so complicated formulas and information data sets and all those things, reimbursement program and everything. Hopefully that opens up to the more straightforward payment process and everything. But I'm also looking forward to the DMG report, as my colleagues mentioned. So that's, I think, it's not that we are looking for something, but it's if it says we are efficient, it validates our process that
Right.
we are doing good. It's a third party validating our our own process, so it gives a credibility and also validation to other folks. And two, it's always good to know what we're in the spirit of continuous improvements, where we can leverage our own existing resources to stretch the dollar to the max, right? So I think that, as Ms. Freck mentioned, this will be very helpful to have it before the budget cycle, to have some initial reads, at least I would say, so that to see what the thought process is, how it's progressing, before we see the final report, maybe at the later part. So, but overall, thanks for the great work. Keep doing what you're doing. Kudos to all your team members and our students and family members. So thank you.
Thank you so much for the report. It was so thorough, so detailed, gave us all the information that we're looking for as we're approaching, trying to finalize and move forward in the budget process. I really enjoyed that you did that impact by level this year. I don't know, that was really helpful to kind of really hit the nail on the head, like on each level and what the goals and where we're really seeing some movement in terms of progress. And I did have a question about the therapeutic learning program and kind of the numbers that are there now and what you may see like going forward there, because it's a wonderful program. We're seeing a lot of savings, but it's also keeping kids in district, and so just kind of what you're projecting maybe going forward.
Yeah, it is going very well. Right now, the savings that we brought forward was based on 6 students. We do have 2 more referrals currently being discussed. One student possibly could transition over to the program as soon as maybe even next week. So we are seeing a number of students with some serious social, emotional, behavioral challenges at the young elementary years. So we do anticipate that the program would probably stay close to that number. A program like that, we really wouldn't want to see the numbers get too high, because then it's too much. And also what we are noticing, the program is K4, and we have a student at each grade level. So that brings its own challenges for the teacher in the program. And then also when the students are ready to go to the general education classroom or for some inclusion, they're going in 4 different classrooms. So things like that we're still looking at, and how to make sure that we're giving the students the best program and best opportunities. But we do anticipate the numbers to stay around 6 to 8. But there are a number of students working through a number of challenges right now in almost every building.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Erin, can I ask another question along those lines? Made me think of, so we're looking at the budget, and it's very volatile. It's a lot of mandates. These are things that must be provided. We don't have the latitude to say no. We must provide it. Is there anything as we move forward in the budget that you're concerned about or worried that could be an issue looking at next year?
So we are currently looking at caseload sizes across the middle schools. We're also currently looking at our structured reading services. I would say those are 2 areas that come to mind, because we always want to make sure that caseloads are manageable for our liaisons. The other area of structured reading, as you know, reading has been an area for us for a number of years now, where we've just seen the number of students that have required structured reading services. That's like Wilson, Orton Gillingham, very scripted reading instruction. But that number has increased a lot. We've added in that particular area. With the new reading program, we're really hoping over the next couple of years, because we are seeing at the elementary school level already that the numbers are going down for the need. So, but we still have that large increase that's moving through the middle school right now.
Yep.
So eventually the goal is hopefully by the time they get to high school that number is lower. So those are two of the big areas. Anything else come to mind that we're...
No, just to add in terms of the structured reading, when the newer science of reading research came out, it's not just an increase in number of kids who are requiring structured reading, but it's the frequency with which they need that service. So in years past, you might have had a student that needed structured reading and received that 2 or 3 times a week. And the newer recommendations are for students to have that every day. So it's both frequency and a number of students that are needing that. And we are seeing positive signs at the elementary level with the implementation of Tier 1. Reading supports and MTSS interventions happening. So yes, we're waiting to see that number come down, but we're not quite there yet.
Thank you, really helpful.
Yeah.
I want to thank Ms. Belcito and Ms. Waterhouse for their leadership. Ms. Belcito, as you've heard me say before, has during her decade plus of leadership here, has brought a lot of innovation to the program, and the spirit of inclusivity, and really cemented that in place with our unified champion programming. All 9 of our schools, our district, all named unified champion schools and district, and I think that really, really captures the spirit of the work that our special education student services staff have done. Noting that this is the 50th anniversary of IDEA, and I think sometimes when people think about policy and governance, and sometimes that works around the edges, that's an example of a law that literally transformed millions of lives, and changed our society for the better. And when I think about the students who we serve and who provide us with so much joy, our students in the RISE program, or Jasmine at the Assabet Collaborative, or the many students that we're serving within our district and our programming. These are students who prior to 50 years ago would not even be part of their school community. Or if they were, they would have been segregated. So I think, it's almost natural to take that for granted now to some degree, but 50 years is not, I'm older than 50 years, but it's a long time, but it's not a long time. Right? But when I was an elementary student, that law didn't exist.
Exactly.
Right? And things were very different when I went to school compared to what we have gotten used to. At the same time, the challenges of the fact that, we are seeing more students with greater needs. Just the instance, the increase in autism since began monitoring at the federal level in year 2000, incidences have gone up 375%. And we're talking 1 in 31 children now being diagnosed on the autism spectrum. When I think about the programming, when I came to Shrewsbury in 1997, a new program in the new Floral Street School to serve what was a handful of students on the autism spectrum or similar disabilities. We now have those programs in every one of our schools. And at our larger elementary schools, they're twice the size, and similar to our middle and high school. So, it's the amount of varied need that we're able to serve. And then with, 50 or so students that need to have that kind of service outside of the district. And Ms. Waterhouse has done an excellent job stepping in on short notice into her role, where she really leads that out-of-district programming, and I deeply appreciate the work that she's done this year with that. 962 students and 400 staff is larger than a lot of local school districts are. So, for around here, we're a fairly large school district, but our special education student services program alone is really a significant size. So again, Ms. Belcito, Ms. Waterhouse, all the directors that they mentioned earlier, all of our educators, specialists, our para-educators, it takes a huge team, and I appreciate the Anchors Away this year and the previous ways that they recognize one another for the excellent work that they do. I also want to thank Dr. Kuziak. Thanks for pointing that out. She's done, we were one of the first districts to have a consulting psychiatrist in the state. Again, it's kind of something that's been routine for us now for a while, and it's really brought a lot of helpful consultation to us and to help kids as we continue to undergo in our country and in our state and locally a mental health crisis among students. And sometimes it manifests in behaviors that are more extreme. Sometimes it doesn't, and it's quiet, but still concerning and troubling, right? And, as I mentioned in my report last week or 2 weeks ago, I wish we could say that, all of our children are well, but not all of them are. And we've really increased our capacity in our clinical services over the last several years to be able to respond to that better. We're really proud of that work, but that is among the most difficult work that happens in our district every day. And it's can be heartbreaking work to see the struggles sometimes that students and their families are going through. I really appreciate the commitment, our families who support us when we do different processes that we have to do that are part of the regulatory process with the state. Often have to ask families, about their perspective, and every time we've done that, families overwhelmingly indicate their satisfaction with their child's special education services. There's always places where we can do better. There's always places where there may be some contention, and that's kind of part of the system, but we try to be very respectful of that and try to do our best to provide what we believe is in the best interest of students within the context of what we're required to provide legally, and to do that in a way that benefits students and again, in a cost-effective way wherever possible. But it is really an extraordinary program. It's extraordinary people. We have extraordinary kids. And it really is a joy to interact and visit these programs and see just the wonderful work that happens every day. So thank you to you. Thank you to your teams. It continues to be my privilege to be able to see this outstanding work that happens on behalf of our students and families, and thank all the staff that are involved. So appreciate you having them here this evening, and thank you for the report.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item on our agenda this evening is fiscal year 27 fees vote. Fee information updates for transportation, athletics, and music lessons were provided to the school committee at the January 21st, 2026 meeting for review in advance of a planned vote this evening. The recommendations were also posted for public review and comment. Setting fee rates now allows the district to project revenues for the coming fiscal year, providing clarity to the overall fiscal 27 financial plan and allowing time for administration to finalize program registration documents and publish rates, affording parents ample time to plan. Tonight, Dr. Sawyer and Mr. Girardi will make a recommendation to hold fees at their current levels. Mr. Girardi.
Thank you. So just to reiterate, on January 21st, we made a presentation or an update on the current fees for bus transportation, athletics, and music lessons to show how we're progressing through this year with the current fee rates. Just as a reminder to the community, this past year, school committee made the decision to reduce bus transportation fee from $320 to $300. They also reduced the high school athletic fee from $325 to $300. And we maintained our middle school athletic fee at $100. And we maintained our music lesson fee from the previous year as well, after some review of the music lessons in FY24. So, after presenting that information, we shared that we're trending pretty much right on track in those areas as far as budgeted dollars to be used in this current fiscal year. And we shared a recommendation with you that will be online tomorrow for people to view, and those recommendations are to maintain the $300 fee for both bus transportation and for high school athletics, and then to maintain the $100 fee for middle school athletics, and to maintain the music lesson rate at approximately $37 per half hour. So that's our recommendation. I'm happy to hear any feedback. And Dr. Sawyer, if you have anything to add prior to making.
Sure, no, I appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Girardi. And just to, from my perspective in making the recommendation to hold fees at their current levels, I think that there's a few different factors that I considered. One important one, of course, is that the report you received last year from District Management Group recommended that we continue to try to find ways to rely less on outside revenue and more on core revenue from the district budget, which is made up of local and state resources, as opposed to fees that are assessed to families. Because of the tightness of the budget that we presented at our last meeting, at the cap of the 4.75% under the override agreement that we have, did not feel there was room, as we saw last year, to be able to make that kind of move, in my estimation. At the same time, holding them steady and not increasing them to move up with inflation still reduces the proportion of the cost that they're bearing. So to me, that's the next best thing. It would be nice to be able to reduce the burden on families, of course, but the reason the fees are there in the first place is to offset costs so that we can maintain the level of services we're providing, and I think that's where we're at this year in terms of an equilibrium. So, will still be less proportionally because of inflation, so those are some of the factors that I considered in making the recommendation. Obviously, happy to hear your feedback, and if you're willing to take a vote this evening, that will help us move forward in terms of planning to put things in place to start collecting them when we launch the bus registration process in April, and as we think ahead to other pieces next year for athletics and music fees. So happy to answer any questions and hear your feedback.
Thank you, Dr. Sawyer. Ms. Reed?
I would like to see in the future, I would like to see the fees be lowered. I think that last year we talked about it, we've talked about it this year. I think that is a goal for us to get away from having fees. We had DMG also give us that feedback. So between what we were thinking before and what DMG came with, I think that is the ultimate goal that we would like to do. That said, I think holding steady with the fees for right now is a good idea. I would like to, and we haven't, I would like to be able to have a conversation with the select board and the finance committee about the financial futures of the town and what that's looking like, because I don't want us to make a decision on something like lowering fees where we might have to walk back on that, because that doesn't send the right message at all. So I think, we had a tri-board meeting before, and I think that's something that we should probably advocate to have again so that we're included in the overall discussion of what the finances look like. We know what the school department finances look like, but I think we need to look at that as a bigger conversation before we take any more moves down. So I think holding steady is probably correct for right now. The one thing that, and I don't know what everybody else feels about this, but something that I want to bring up is the family caps that we have for. So we have, for the busing, we have a family cap of, $900, and that extends for if you're in kindergarten through you're in 12th grade, you have a family cap. But we technically have two family caps for the athletics, one at the high school and one at the middle school. So even though we have a $900 family cap at the high school, if you have a high schooler that is playing 3 sports for $900, and then you also have a middle schooler who might be doing 3 sports, technically you don't have you're paying $1,200. So you have a family cap at the high school and you have a family cap at the middle school. I'm wondering if we can combine the cap so that, like we have for the buses, K through 12 has a family cap across the board. Could we do that for athletics, 7 through 12, come to some kind of a family cap so that we don't have, there could be situations where a family's paying the cap for busing, the cap for high school, and the cap for the middle school. So I don't know if there's a way, I know there's probably not an easy way to pull how many families are hitting the cap for everything, but I wonder if that's just something we might want to consider looking at that.
I'm also torn on this one, and I mentioned this to Dr. Sawyer and Ms. Boucher during our conversations, looking at most of the DMG report and the fact that we're overly dependent on fees, grants, and philanthropy. And should some or all of that go away, how would the appropriated budget be able to pick that up? So I think from a fiscal responsibility, we should be looking at that concern, which was one of their key areas. And, just historically, these fees were born out of necessity. For years, the school department budget did not adequately meet the needs. So, as Dr. Sawyer said, it's that cost. Like, how are we going to bear the cost of education and not affect class size and reduce programming or eliminate programs? So we started with fees, and they have crept up. At one point, we were pretty much the highest in the state. A lot of other districts have added fees, I think, out of necessity. But I think, it's an over dependence on them. I do understand holding this year, and also because if we're holding, it takes into consideration inflationary costs since last year. But I agree with Rachel, I think it's something that we need to really talk about. Tri-board meeting and having everybody understand, just the impact that they could have if these don't go away on the school budget. And similar to what we did with full-day kindergarten fees, we slowly took those down over time. I think I will not be here next year, but I think, it's something that we should continue to look at, slowly reducing the burden on families who are already being taxed, and look at ways to help them, but also to stop our over-reliance on something that, where we have right now some budget, we know what the budget is, this is the time that we would want to try to slowly bring them down.
Mr. Weinstein?
Yeah, so I do support the recommendation to hold steady on the fees, but I absolutely agree that we need to reduce our dependency on them, as we're not in the same position we were prior to May of 2021, right? Because what was happening was, and you mentioned it, Ms. Fritz, about that kind of born out of necessity, right? We built the districts kind of somewhat of the financial stability around, well, okay, there's a budget gap, so we need to increase fees. And then it was rinse and repeat for years as we were chipping around the edges, and what led us to, what was May of 2021, where things changed to more predictability, right? And, we were in a position last year where we felt comfortable, like, hey, we could actually relieve some of the burden on families by reducing some of the fees, and we should kind of keep creative around that focus. This year is different, obviously, tighter budget, there are needs in other places, but, we're getting to a point where we need to have a collective leadership discussion in town about what, the financial future of all services, including education, look like. And when you're the highest fee district in the state, one of them, or maybe it does make you wonder, like, can we get creative? Can we think outside the box and talk about how we either significantly reduce the fees that we're putting on the backs of families, or somehow, and again, I'm speaking for myself, outside the box, fold in the fees to the next budget cycle, so they're completely removed. Now, I know when we made the proposal last year to eliminate, or not to eliminate, to reduce fees, there were some raised eyebrows over that and some really difficult discussions that we had. But I mean, this body was pretty adamant to say, hey, look, we're charging families a significant amount of money for transportation and for other fees, and it adds up over time. So I agree with Ms. Rapoport, and I'm sure the sentiments of this board around having a tri-board meeting, having a discussion with select board about what the future looks like, because we don't want to go backwards,
Right.
which is why I'm glad we didn't make any recommendations to increase.
Right.
But I understand the need to hold steady at this point. So, thank you.
I echo the sentiment. So for sure we want to be not leveraging the fee to offset the budget pressures. But I'm also happy to see this. We are holding it steady rather than increasing it, given all the inflationary pressures. The families are having the pain. So I think keeping it steady is a sort of level setting at this point, rather than increasing it. But I totally agree. We need to start to move away from relying on the fees. All in all, whether it's bus fee, athletic fee, music, extracurricular fees, whatever it is. As we did with the high school club fees, really, we should be having a plan to off-ramp all these fees. But I think for this year, I think having it steady makes more sense for sure.
I agree with my colleagues. I would like to see us move away from this model. DMG has kind of laid it out very clearly for all of us. We are over-reliant on fees as a district. And, I think the more that we just continue to push this along, it's not helping. We do need to have a broader conversation about addressing this issue. I do agree, though, with my colleagues that this year might not be the time to do it, given the tightness of the budget and the fact that we would need to be probably reducing somewhere else if we did take that next, the step to try to ratchet these down this year. And holding steady, at least we have been able to make some incremental progress in the past couple budget cycles to bring them down. So by holding steady, we are, at least reducing the proportion that we're relying on them for the programming they support. So, with that said, are people comfortable making a motion this evening? Or would you like to hold this for further discussion?
No, comfortable.
Comfortable?
Comfortable, okay. So may I have a motion that the school committee vote to maintain fees for transportation, high school athletics, middle school athletics, and music lessons at their current fiscal year 26 levels for fiscal year 2027?
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor shall signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And the motion carries. Thank you.
And just to respond to Ms. Shreveport's suggestion, Mr. Girardi and I will look at that issue of the combined athletic cap, and we'll come back at a future meeting with some information and potentially a recommendation as well.
Great, thank you. The next item on our agenda this evening is a report on the Assabet Valley Collaborative. The state law governing educational collaboratives requires 4 updates each year to member school districts. This will be the 3rd update this year. And this update is to provide information regarding the Assabet Valley Collaborative's 2025 annual report, which we have received a copy of. Dr. Sawyer?
This is a deja vu report because we just had it at the last meeting. This timing is synced up a little differently this year, but you did have in your materials, as mentioned, the annual report from the collaborative. That's part of the state requirement that each collaborative reports out and indicates some of the ways in which they're providing some cost-effective opportunities for their member districts. We are again pleased to be able to participate in some of the programming that they offer, benefit from some of the services in terms of whether those are some collective bids for things such as supplies and paper and the like, and certain student services that they're able to provide that it will be more expensive for individual districts to provide with less of an economy of scale. But in terms of, happy to answer any questions about the report. It's in your materials, but we continue to be pleased to be part of a high-quality operation. We continue to, as the board of directors made up of the superintendents of the member districts, monitor what's happening in terms of programming and cost, and just as we mentioned last time when you saw the audit report, again, we're pleased that it's functioning well and that our district benefits in various ways. So again, happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions? No. Thank you, Dr. Sawyer. The next item on our agenda this evening is approval of minutes. The minutes from the school committee meeting held on February 11th were enclosed. Did anyone have any amendments or corrections?
No.
Okay. They will be accepted as distributed. And then the next, I think that's it. We do need to go into executive session this evening. I will need a motion to adjourn to executive session. A, for the purpose of addressing General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A7, to comply with or act under the authority of any general or special law or federal grant and aid requirement. Purpose 7, Open Meeting Law, General Law, Chapter 30A, Sections 22F and G, for the purpose of reviewing, approving, and/or releasing executive session minutes. B, for the purpose of addressing General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect of the bargaining or litigating position of the public body and the chair so declares. Purpose 3, the Shrewsbury Education Association units, A and/or B, the Shrewsbury Paraprofessional Association and/or the Cafeteria Workers Association. C, for the purpose of addressing General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A2, to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel, or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel, non-union clerical and support staff and/or administrators, including the position of superintendent. Purpose 2. D, for the purpose of addressing General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A7, to comply with or act under the authority of any general or special law or federal grant and aid requirements, federal and Massachusetts student record laws. Purpose 7. and E, for the purpose of General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A1, to discuss the reputation, character, physical condition, or mental health rather than professional competence of an individual, or to discuss the discipline or dismissal of, or complaints or charges brought against a public officer, employee, staff member, or individual. Open meeting law complaint, purpose 1, where the deliberation in an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the public body, return to open session only for the purpose of adjourning for the evening. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Roll call vote. Ms. Fritz?
Aye.
Mr. Wensky?
Aye.
Ms. Rifaporte?
Aye.
Mr. Belligaputi?
Aye.
Myself, aye. Thank you and good night.